Undisputed champion of the world, Henderson, the Spider Silva. Man, I used to love him when Bruce Buffer did that. Wow. And that's the title of this video, y'all. The term undisputed. Undisputed champion. Now think to yourself, what does undisputed champion mean to you? Now to me, and I think to the average person, undisputed champion means the person or the man or the woman who is without a doubt the champion. They've beat all the contenders. Not only their whole country agrees, the whole world agrees. This person is the champion. Excuse me. This person is the champion. Without a shadow of a doubt. This person definitely is the champion. Anybody flush with them, they undisputed. They deserve the diamond, the gold, crown, whatever. But we're going to get into some of the technicalities in this video, y'all. The undisputed champion. Part 1. All right, now in pro boxing, the undisputed champion of a weight class is the one who is recognized as the world champion at that weight class by each boxing organization. Now, nowadays, there's 4 main ones that are recognized to be the undisputed. To be the undisputed right now, as of 2015, you need to have the WBO, WBC, WBA, and IBF. Now, back in 1962, you only needed the WBA and the WBC. Before that, all you needed was maybe the NASAC or NBA. And before that, all you needed was a consensus or a world acclamation or world agreement that you were the champion, so on and so forth. All right. Now, prior to the 1960s, most champions were quote unquote called undisputed. So that means up until the 60s, 70s and shit, if you won the belt, it was recognized that you were the real champion. You were undisputed because you most likely not only whooped down all the contenders, but you whooped down champions in all other divisions of your weight class. Such as, back in the day, there was a California Mexican champ. There was a black or Negro world champion. There was the colored world champion. There was the European champion. So prior to the 60s, once you got the #1 spot, you beat the man who beat the man. Now you the man. Generally, you were quote unquote called undisputed. All right. Now, after the 60s, it started to get fragmented up and broken up and who did this, who did that. But more on the technical side. Now, the early boxing champions at various weight classes or weight divisions were established, like we just said, by acclamation between 1880 and 1920. Okay? Acclamation, y'all. Emancipation acclamation. All right? That means that a consensus was held and everybody agreed upon that man being the champion and that man deserving the title. That means, let's say, if you were a dude, let's say you were dude number 3, but you beat dudes 9 through 6, and you beat the #1 dude, then there was a consensus that you were the damn champion. Now you got the title. Or let's say you were the number 8 dude, ranked by, everybody's, shit talk, whatever, everybody, rumors, whatever. Let's say they ranked you at number 8, but you beat the dudes #1 through 6, you were considered by consensus the champion. All right. And the only way to get the undisputed title during this time was by beating the reigning holder, i.e. to be the man, you got to beat the man, like Ric Flair and all the other greats have said. All right. And also that would establish a lineal championship, which is held to this day. Unfortunately, people like Cotto has a lineal title at 160. Granted, he's not fighting people at 160. And the shit just boggles my mind. But anywho, we will get more into just a little bit, not more, just a tad bit into the history. And we're going to get more into it in another video we got coming up. But we're going to get just a tad bit into the history of being undisputed in some of the organizations that have to deal with being undisputed. All right, now, the NYSAC, or the New York State Athletic Commission, recognized champions, undisputed champions especially, since the 1920s. I think 1920 is the exact date. Then the NBA, which was the National Boxing Association, which was founded by U.S. city states and, corporations, whatever, which was founded by whoever was funding it in 1921, during the same time as the NYSAC, and they began recognize undisputed champions in 1927. Then we still got the NBA today, but it renamed itself to the WBA, the World Boxing Association, and that started in 1962. And what's interesting when I looked it up, is based in Panama, and a lot of these other governing, I guess these alphabet governing titles with the NBA, WBC, all this shit, they based in countries that you wouldn't expect them to be based in, but that's neither here nor there. It's based in Panama. The WBA, the NBA that soon became the WBA in the early 1960s, is based out of Panama. All right. Then in 63 or 64, somewhere in the 60s, the NYSAC and the EBU, which was the European boxing, establishment, they formed the rival of the WBA, which was the WBC, the World Boxing Council. And that was established and based out of Mexico. Olale. All right. And the shit goes on and on. Y'all know, we all know it's politics. It's who has money. It's who extorting who. It's who has more juice. It's who has more leverage. So once you have one governing body, well, I can't even say government. Once you have one organization that's establishing chambers, then you have another, then you have another, and they all spring up, all vying for power, all trying to have the final say so on who's the champ. But now today, the four main ones all recognize each other. So all the other ones get left out, such as the EBU and the IBU and all those other alphabet titles. But I will say that since they established their shit earlier as an organization and, incorporated it, the most of the champions that we know that were undisputed usually had the older titles, such as the NBA, WBA, WBC, and blah, 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 blah. All right. Now, the IBF, the International Boxing Federation, it was founded in 1976, but then it wasn't recognized as, I could say, a qualified element to be an undisputed champion until 1984. So before 1984, you could have had just maybe 2 or 3 belts without having the IBF and still be an undisputed champion. But then afterwards, so you see where we're going? See, so back in the 50s, all you needed was the WBA. And then the 60s, and I'm just using this as an example, you only needed WBA, WBC. Then, 70s and now 80s, now you need WBA, WBC, IBF. And now nowadays, you need WC, WBO, WBA. You see what I'm saying? It's adding on more and more shit as the time goes on. But I think the best way was consensus. You beat the man who beat the man. Now you the man. You beat all the top contenders. You the undisputed champion. And I think UFC holds more true to that than nowadays boxing. But and now you even got Ring Magazine. They even have a fucking say so. I mean, granted, their magazine is the truth, but it's just too many belts. Anyway, we're gonna get into something called disputed undisputed champions. Who were the most disputed undisputed champions? Now, I'm only going to go off what the net says, and I know you probably have tons in your mind, but the most disputed undisputed champions, according to the internet, now I haven't been using primary resources for this one, just, my boxing knowledge as a person just been involved in boxing and the internet. The most disputed undisputed champions in the history thus far have been Roy Jones Jr., it's according to the net now, y'all, Lennox Lewis, Jermaine Taylor, and Joe Calzaghe. Now, personally, I don't think Lennox Lewis or Jermaine Taylor should be on the list. But, all these men at one point in time met the qualifications to be the undisputed champion at that time. Because, you know, they added on more belts that you got to acquire as time went on in the 90s and the 2000s up until now to be called Undisputed. But at that time, they had all the belts. Rather it's by hook or crook. Rather it's because someone vacated them, or rather because they had two of the belts and somebody passed away, so they were already a champion, and then they acquired those two belts just by acclamation. Whatever the reason, at one point in time, they had all the belts to be called Undisputed. All right? So again, it was Roy Jones Jr., Lennox Lewis, Jermaine Taylor, and Joe Calzaghe. Now, me personally, I think Joe Calzaghe and Roy Jones Jr., just by reading the backstory, probably was, you know, the least likely to be undisputed. But hey, they put in work. They beat certain people they need to beat. And when you go back and look at these backstory, you'll see shit like they'll win a title, and then they'll give the person who had the belt a rematch, right? And instead of fighting the number one contender, who they just beat the champion, by the way, instead of fighting the number one contender after they beat the champion, that organization would strip the title from them because they're giving the champion a rematch instead of fighting the number one contender. And a lot of times, I think that happened with Calzaghe and with Jones. I'm not sure. I got to go back and look. But, you know, just this little ins and outs and sanctioning fees, to me, it's all politics. Sadly to say, politics is even fucking up our lovely, our great, sweet science. Now, in pro wrestling, I used to do a little wrestling and shit like that. In pro wrestling, the undisputed champion was the term for the champion who won all the major individual titles in his run to become the heavyweight champion. You know what I'm saying? So that would mean that you won the TV title, the Intercontinental Championship, all them little small belts until you got the heavyweight title. So in pro wrestling, you had to win all the belts coming up through the ranks and then win the heavyweight title to be called Undisputed. And I think from what I was seeing, Chris Jericho or Stone Cold or The Rock, one of them was the last undisputed champion. There hasn't been put it this way, there hasn't been an undisputed champion in pro wrestling in a while. And for UFC, when you think about undisputed champions, you would think of, let's say, Anderson Silva. He's beat all the top contenders. Ronda Rousey, you know, John Bones Jones. You know, they convincingly beat, and I might even say St. Pierre. They convincingly beat all the top contenders. Now, someone who just got the belt on the whim, like your boy Matt Serra did back in the day. See, when Bruce Buffer announced him, they wouldn't call him undisputed. All right? They would not call that Joker undisputed. Got a luck win, and then I think either in the rematch or two matches later, I can't remember if it was Matt Hughes or George St. Pierre came back and whooped them down and got their title back. So when they announced them for them fights, hopefully Bruce Buffer didn't say undisputed. Matter of fact, I'm sure he didn't say undisputed. Now, let's get into the definition. All right, definition, undisputed. I used the Internet Merriam-Webster's Dictionary of Undisputed, and I used Webster's Dictionary, and I used Etymology Dictionary. If y'all know what that is, look it up. I ain't got time to explain all this shit to y'all. All right, y'all grown. All right, undisputed. Definition 1, definitely true, not doubted or questioned. Example, the undisputed facts of the case. Definition number 2, accepted by everyone. Example, the undisputed leader or champion. All right. Definition number 1 by another dictionary, undisputed, generally agreed upon, not subject to dispute. All right. An accepted theory, undisputed, which equals accepted without question, quote unquote, undoubted evidence, not called into question and not to be argued with. Now we got some synonyms for the title or the word undisputed. Synonyms: indisputable, irrefutable, unchallenged, uncontested, undeniable, unequivocal, unquestioned, and accepted. So you can't be throwing this term around loosely. Undisputed means that without the shadow of a doubt that this person is universally recognized as the champion. They beat everybody they need to beat, and if they need to beat Mo, You know, then they just need to beat whoever steps up next. You know, punks jump up to get beat down. So that's why the belts confuse this mode. That's why, you know, people talk about Pacquiao, Mayweather, and, you know, Cotto and Triple G and all the other shit that's going on. It's hard to call these dudes undisputed because they haven't beat all the top contenders, and there's so many belts that disperse the championship. I think we should go back to that one lineal championship in every weight class, world acclamation. If they hadn't beat all the top and the best, and damn, they're not undisputed. They kind of like half or 1/3 of a champion. I mean, they might have the title in their state or their country, but you ain't beat such and such, such and such and such and such. So we really can't fully call you the champion. Now, at the moment, in my opinion, and of course, then we got to use the belts too. The people that are as close to being undisputed right now are Kovalev, Klitschko, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Rigondeaux. I'm probably wrong on that. But all the other belts and all the weight classes are dispersed between 2, 3, and 4 people. Shit is just crazy, y'all. So this is part 1. Part 1, y'all. To the undisputed champion of the world. We love boxing.